Sorry, Pratik, I just dropped it for a minute.
Yeah, I have started the recording.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Soundav, I think we are good to start.
Okay, sure, Vijayalakshmi.
Should I begin?
Let me give a short intro, Pratik, if you could allow me. Yeah. Dear entrepreneurs, thank you everyone for participating in this session. So, in our past session, in session one, we have discussed about building what the, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
Soundav.
we can hear you.
Yeah. In our session one, we discussed about building a winning market strategy, where we covered about, identifying our target market, validating the MVP, optimization, and understanding about the PMF. In our second session, we have Mr. Pratik Mehta, who is Associate Vice President of Credit Vidya, who would be taking about on, building a winning product strategy. In giving a short intro about Pratik Mehta, he comes with more than a decade of years experience, in product development, sales, and strategy in Credit Vidya. So I just request each and every founders to be more interactive and get the best utilization of this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Should I begin?
Yes, Pratik. I think
All right.
internet fluctuation. You can begin, please.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll just quickly just give an intro. I'm following. I think he just dropped off, and I'll just quickly just relay whatever he said. I've been with Credit Vidya for last. Credit Vidya is a fintech company. The core philosophy of Credit Vidya is to build products which will help give affordable credit to the mass market. And we have been in this business for the last 8 years, and that's been the mission and the goal for us. We started off as a SaaS company around 8 years ago. Very recently, we have also now moved into consumer lending business as well. So consumer financial services. I've been associated with this company for the last 8 years, where I have managed roles from product development. I was leading an entire product team. Post that, I was part of the sales team, where we were selling our SaaS products. And just a year ago, I have joined the financial services business, where I take care of growth and retention, which constitutes of collections, engagement, cross-selling new products to the customers. So it's been a total 11 years of experience from engineering, product development, sales, and now running an entire business out here. I'm going to move on to the starting of a session. So before I start, Arun kind of gave you a brief last week on MVP, and I'm just going to. So when I'm going to talk about the session out here, I'm going to bring relevance to what we did when we started off 8 years ago, how we went about building our product strategy, and what led to the success to the product. Just to give you a brief of the product that we had introduced 8 years ago, today the product generates $2 million a year, and it's growing at a 40% rate year on year, and it's going on strength to strength. Because we got some things right and we built a great strategy and we put a good strategy in place, the product continues to grow and continues to be the anchor product in all our SaaS sales that we are doing today. I have actually been part of this product development from the beginning. I was the one who actually built it and also was instrumental in doing the sales as well. So once you go about building your MVP, right, there is a certain dilemma that you would end up being in. And there are two things that would come to your mind. Hey, you know what? The MVP looks like a success to me. Why not just put all my resources in product development and just go about building all the features that the customers require? That's typically the mindset that everyone comes along with, because the MVP looks like a product market fit, is what Arun said last time. And he clearly mentioned, right, that MVP is not equal to PMF, but there is a certain roadmap that you have to achieve to reach that PMF. So how do you go about doing that? Does an MVP mean that the customers are going to get attracted to your product? Not really. There are a couple of things that now you have to work upon to ensure that you're able to reach that vision that you have set in the beginning. And that work that you have to do is called as a product strategy. The product strategy is going to bridge the gap between your product vision and your product roadmap. It's going to give you a set of direction on what you need to do to reach that stage. To give you an example, Credit Vidya's MVP was the first client, our anchor client was Bajaj Finserv. Bajaj Finserv were looking out for a product where they wanted to educate their customers and at the same time generate fee income on their customers. And they reached out to Credit Vidya and we said, why not? We'll build something for you. And we did the pilot with them for 3 months and the pilot actually became very, very successful. So before jumping into building features for Bajaj or building features that everyone requested to us when we were doing our initial sales, we took a step back and we said, hey, you know what is it that we have to do first to ensure that we are able to build growth in the product and we are able to achieve that vision. So I want to kind of first walk you through those 6 steps on how would you go about building a great product strategy. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind is that you need to start doing your research. Don't get into the development of product because your MVP is already running. So it's unless and until you have an MVP which says that, hey, after 3 months, the product needs to shut down and the contract gets over, then it's a very different thing altogether. But typically, MVPs continue to exist. It is just that now there are new features that come from your customers and when they ask or when they start demanding new things from you. During the course of your MVP, what you need to start doing is you need to start putting your resources behind doing research, trying to analyze and understanding the market. What I mean by, and we kind of break down the research part into 3 parts. The first thing is you want to know why do customers use or don't use your product. The most important thing to do is to find out why customers are not using a product and then figure out why some customers are using a product. You need to understand what are the frequent pain points that they have today with respect to using or not using a product, and also understand or segment your cohorts into multi-cohorts and figure out what are the different needs that these audience require. While you're doing all of these activities, you need to analyze which audience is most valuable, which means that who has the need today and is going to buy your product today, which audience is growing fast and which isn't. Eventually, the audience that could be valuable could probably not being that valuable because the audience could be too small, but which is why you need to understand which is the other audience that is going to grow really, really fast. And what are your biggest drop-offs in your funnel? Which personas are not showing interest today? You need to group all of those personas together and you need to figure out what could be the primary reasons that they're dropping off. And finally, in the market, you really need to get a grasp of the macroeconomics on what are the customer behaviors that are changing over a period of time? What did it look like in the past? Where do you think the needs are going to move? And how do you perceive all of these things are going to go ahead? At the same time, when you're trying to understand the macroeconomics, you also need to be aware about what your key competitors are doing. With respect to the sales strategy that they have deployed, with respect to the product features that they have built, with respect to the marketing strategies that they have in place. And from the economic perspective, you need to also understand how customers are getting impacted without and with your product. Now, we did the same exercise for our product as well. What we ended up doing when we are at the process of doing our MVP, we realized that the sales team, so our product was a B2B2C product, which means that we built a white label product. We gave the white label product to the sales team of our bank and partners, and the bank and partner sales team would sell it to the end customer. So what we saw was that the salespeople would not be able to pitch the product really, really well, which means they were not able to articulate what the product really benefited. We also noticed that our customers did not speak English. Not all customers spoke English. And we also saw that there were some customers who were completely new to credit and needed a completely different approach to credit education. While we were analyzing, we saw that the most valuable audience that we had today were the existing credit because they were paying. They had credit. They wanted to know where they stood on their score, on their grades. And they ended up becoming the most valuable audience. But the audience was small. There was an exploding audience that was coming in, which was the new to credit population, the guys who have never taken a loan before. These were the guys who were entering into the market. So we saw there was a certain need that was getting created out there. And sales found it extremely difficult to articulate this proposition to this persona. From the market perspective, we saw that customers have started getting more aware about their credit. We saw that as people started taking more and more loans, they started becoming more and more financially literate. Our competitors started selling year-long subscriptions. So these were features that are already getting ingrained into the product that the competitors were selling. And from an economy perspective, and you must be reading the fintech news, that more and more people are being offered credit in different forms and shapes. So when more and more product is getting sold, it is important that financial literacy also gets served. And that's where our product was standing at the time of doing the MVP. So after we completed our research, analyze, and market framework, we decided, let's write down what the positioning looked like for us. And we ended up putting up a positioning framework around. So the positioning framework, and we kind of generalized it, and this is something which is very, very general, which can be implemented for your businesses as well, which says, for a specific target customer who has a specific need for the product, it caters to a market category. What are the key benefits that the customer would end up getting, and what is the compelling reason that they have to buy? Unlike your primary competitors, what are the alternatives that are available? Well, how does your product differentiate with respect to the competitive products? And we ended up building a proposition framework, trying to understand what is it that how do we want to position the product? So our positioning was very, very simple. We said, hey, you know what? We want to build a product which could be given to banks and NBFCs who want to increase their fee income. So there are two types of incomes that banks make. One is an interest income and one is a fee income. Every time a loan is given out, the bank makes interest income. The fundamental challenge that banks found that they would not be able to generate a lot of fee income on their business. So they needed products that could generate fee income for them. And that's where we wanted to hit. We said that this product is going to be more suitable, not as a credit education. See, the product end benefit is obviously for the customers that, hey, you will be credit aware and you will get credit educated. But in the end, our end customer was our primary customer was a bank. So we had to propose or position it as a fee income product for them. And the indirect benefit that we would serve to them, we would say, hey, it's a credit education product for your end customers. It actually seamlessly integrates into your current loans distribution. Now, what it meant by that is that you do not have to do anything more than what you're doing because it integrates directly into your process. Your sales guys are continuously always selling products to the customers. All you have to do is just add another product. From a system perspective, your existing data that you pull from the customer, the product seamlessly integrates into that. The indirect benefit that you would get is that there will be some valuable insights that the customers would end up getting with easy to interpret credit information. Unlike your traditional bureaus. So if you pull your credit report from any of the bureaus, you will actually not understand what they're trying to tell you. Our product would actually break it down into simple grades, like how you get it in schools, A+ and C- on various factors. So the product was simplified so that when the customers are getting it, they really, really understand the end benefits of it. And that's where we ended up building the positioning framework. Now, before I move on to the next set, why not all of us take some time and write down what our company's product is and what is the positioning framework that you want to build for our product. Can we do that? Was I audible?
Yeah, Pratik. I think that should be a very good exercise.
I guess no one else is able to hear me, or is this not? Am I not making sense? If you could, if you have questions right now, please throw it at me.
Pratik, you are audible.
Hmm.
I think we have people. We have Krishna, Jagat, Chetan, Vijay. Guys, if you have
Yeah,
any, you
there's
can
Krishna.
ask or put it in a chat box, or you can also reply. What is your take on this exercise?
I think Vijay Lakshmi Krishna has responded that all clear. However, we need to start the activity, what is being currently displayed on the screen.
Yes, Paresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can try. So this is Krishna. So far, whatever has been said, it's clear and it's understandable. It makes sense.
So let's take
Sure.
out some time and write down what a positioning framework looks like. So I've gone through some of the responses that you guys have gave, and that's where I thought, why not do this exercise again? And I'm sure all of you must have done it in some shape or form. Why not do it again and just see what comes out of it right now? Guys, if you're not going to respond, I'll not know if it's making sense or not.
Pratik, I'm just trying to use the framework to
Sure,
fill in the
okay.
fill in the blanks and compile it.
Okay.
Just give us a few minutes.
Sure.
Pratik, one quick question for you.
Yeah.
I am serving the infertility care segment with complementary healthcare. Okay. So for me, I was just saying for couples who are having a challenge in having a baby naturally. Okay, that's how I started out. But I'm just trying to. I got lost the moment it came to market category. What do you mean? What did you mean by market category? I just wanted to get a sense of it. So let me take a moment to explain to you what I do.
Yeah.
Almost 25-30% of urban couples are having difficulty in having a baby naturally. That's where we step in. Okay.
Yeah.
Of those who are having challenge, about 10% of them seek treatment, and they typically seek something called IVF treatment. Okay, IVF is just one word. There are many other treatments around it. It's easier to explain with IVF. Okay, that success rate with IVF is about 30-35%. Okay, and the major contributing factor for people's inability to have a baby is the mental state of these couples. Okay, so we as a company are providing a behavioral health platform which is complementary to the IVF treatment. Okay, now we are largely catering to the SEC/AB. I mean, people who are, I would say, a middle class to upper middle class and affluent class, in terms of people who are fairly comfortable with English, but not necessarily, because there are many people who spend 5-7 lakh rupees in IVF treatment, and they may not be comfortable with English language. So we have also observed that even the techies, their partners or they themselves may not be comfortable with English language. I mean, I'm sure we both are from the tech industry. We understand that. Okay, so language is not the major criteria there, but definitely we are looking at graduates as people who will come to us. Okay, now how do I go about compiling this? I got a little lost the moment I got to market category. Can you help me there, please?
Yeah, so market category. So in our case, it was a credit education product. So in your case, it's something to do with mental health care, right? So you would
to be
have
more
to frame
precise,
that.
I think, lifestyle change management, easier to understand. Lifestyle change.
Yeah, and that is what becomes too broad. So I could have easily said, hey, you know what, I am into financial education, but that's too broad. So you need to specify into a very, very narrow category today, because that's the category that you're operating in. So for example, my new business, right? I gave a very broad category, financial service. मतलब क्या है? Financial services so broad हो गया. But our primary business is providing loans to the customers. So I would always say that if I were to put a positioning framework for my current business, I would say my target customers are MSME customers who want some liquidity in their business. And the product that we are giving, the market category is, it's a cash advance or a pay later loan. So the category is very, very specific that I am actually building a product for a very, very narrow category. I mean, if you kind of put your positioning framework to be very, very broad, you would end up losing direction of where you would want to go ahead. So this, what it does is it kind of narrows it down for you today. And this positioning keeps evolving, right? So today it could be something which is so narrow. Tomorrow you would add a positioning for another product for you. And day after tomorrow, you would add a positioning for another product for you. So for every product, the positioning has to be very, very different. So today Credit Vidya has 8 products. For all the 8 products, we have a very separate positioning that we have put across to the customers.
Okay. Okay.
Vijay, this is Paresh here.
Hi, Paresh.
Vijay, just a question, because your business seems to be very interesting. Okay. So why are you specifically focusing on only infertility issue, mental support? Why only that segment? Any specific reason?
3 factors. The first factor is we have a past track record in the industry. We have provided therapeutic in that industry. It's a biotherapeutic we have done. We have helped over 1,600 couple have babies already.
Okay, very good.
So which means we have a track record. We have a reputation in the industry. That's the first reason.
Mm-hmm.
The second reason why we are approaching the market is our service or product and service combination is going to be costing couples, the LTV for them is going to be anywhere between 70 to 90,000 rupees. Okay, from our perspective, for them, the total spend. But the benefit is they typically spend about 5 to 7 lakhs in treatment, where they go, there's only a 1/3 chance of taking home a baby. We increase that chance by about 25% approximately. Okay. So you spend 7 lakh rupees, 5 to 7 lakh rupees for a 35% chance. You spend an additional 70,000 for a 60% chance. Okay. That's where we come in. Okay. Mm-hmm. The reason we chose this industry was because people are spending money. We don't have to really go and try to convince them to spend a little more. You spend 10%, 15% more for a 25% or a 50% enhanced outcome is a very significant value proposition from the customer's perspective. Okay. So these were some of the factors which led us to focusing on infertility segment, because there are over 100 platforms which are providing mental health care support from Yordost to, I can name, right? Yordost is a very popular one meant for founders, by the way, but they have one specific package for founders to actually overcome the stress and anxiety, among other things. Okay. So we don't really want to go in a competitive place where 100 players are there. We wanted to go in a niche place where there is willingness to spend. There is a clear establishment of our efficacy. And from here, we intend to extend to maternity and then eventually to other specialties as well over a period of time.
Okay. So Pratik, I think then the market segment he has already defined it in a very structured way. So he can just focus on infertility couple is the target customer for him for this stage. So how do you see, Pratik?
So he's got the target segment right. I think where he's getting stuck is the market category, on what exactly should be the market category. So the definition of market category is something that in your case,
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You'll have to restrict it to mental health today, unless and until you don't have your products and services built, because your entire vision on the product or your entire strategy on the product is going to be very different. Unless and until you don't introduce a new product. I mean, just imagine this, right? Credit Vidya could have easily gone and told customers, hey, I have financial services and I can give you financial services under the hood. What would be my sales pitch like? My sales pitch would be very, very confusing to the customer, right? Because I'm actually saying I can give you everything. The customer would think, "Acha, tum bank ho kya?" Like, nahi, bank nahi hai hum log. We actually give credit products. So then, why would you call yourself as a financial services company? So the same thing applies to you as well, right, Vijay? You are calling yourself as a lifestyle change, but then what comes under it? Do you have all of these services today, or are you only catering to something today? So then you have to narrow it down and say that, hey, this is the category that I'm operating. And I'm only talking about a product, Vijay. I'm not talking about your business. ये company के बारे में नहीं है. It's a product strategy document. So you have to narrow down the product for a specific category itself, because it cannot serve an entire, I would say, an entire mass. It will always be able to serve for a specific cohort.
I got the picture. We have a diagnostic offering. We have something called a screening package. The screening is meant to help us identify the condition of 7 factors that are affecting their lifestyle. That's what screening package is all about. Okay, so it is not about offering stack of about 4 different products, and I can have a common positioning framework for each, for screening, for assessment, for my group therapy, for my personalized therapy. Everything could possibly be a different statement, is what you're saying. Could be, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be different, but it could be different.
Yes.
Okay.
मतलब होता ही हमेशा होता है. Just think about soap ना. मैं soap बेच रहा हूँ. I'm going to take something simple, right? Something that is real life. Software products and lending, even credit products, are slightly more difficult to gauge. Take a simple example of a soap. I have a luxury soap. I'm the same company, all right? I have a luxury soap and I have a normal soap. What is my positioning going to be like for a luxury soap, and what is my positioning going to be for a normal soap? मान लो मैंने Dove बेचा and I'm selling, let's say, Lux. You are able to see the positioning of both of these products being very, very different even today.
Got it.
Right? They are serving different cohorts. One is serving a cohort saying कि आपको मेरा skin एकदम soft करना है. एक बोल रहा है कि I'll take a very drastic example. Dettol and Dove. Dove बोल रहा है skin soft करो. Dettol बोल रहा है कि germs हटाओ. So cohorts are different, which is why positioning changes. In my mind, product strategy has been more about positioning your product rather than the development, because the development is going to come eventually. The roadmap is going to fit in, but if you don't get your positioning right in your strategy document, it becomes very difficult to know where you want to go. So you have to get very, very, very crisp on your positioning.
And I got some clarity, Pratik. I think it requires some more reading at my end and some work.
Yes.
One quick question for you. If I were to read up some material so that I get a better sense of this entire thing, what would be your recommended reading material? I mean, of course, beyond this workshop, in this context.
Yeah, I'll do one thing. I'll curate all the necessary reading materials that are there, and I'll send it over to you guys on how exactly would you go about doing a product strategy. आज की तारीख में क्या है कि even when I was doing my research, everything was very, very fragmented. I had to actually figure out and find something more common and balancing. But I'll definitely figure out what would be the more appropriate way of going about doing the research on this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pratik.
Yeah.
I think let me not hold you.
Yeah.
This is Sanjeev here.
Yeah.
So
hey, do you mind if you switch on a video so it becomes more intimate and personal when I'm talking to you?
Yeah. 1 second. Is it visible?
Yeah. Hi, Sanjeev. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. So we are SeekHelp. The SeekHelp as a startup where we are into a telemedicine. So I'm just framing the positioning framework that you have mentioned. So for tier 2 senior citizens who has chronic health issues and dependency, is a local connectivity telemedicine platform that connects local healthcare service providers to senior citizens with same-day delivery, unlike competitors who functions in tier 1 and take significant time for delivery. The product uniquely offers happening health connect to get health-related questions response from healthcare professionals.
That's
just
your product number 2.
The things what. Sorry?
Right. But that's your product number 2, Sanjeev. The positioning for your product number 2 and your positioning for your product number 1 should be different.
Sorry, come back and see. The product is what it mentioned is unique differentiation statement, right? So how different, what uniquely we are offering as a part of the product is, right? If I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
So the telemedicine for tier 2 is perfectly fine. So you have specified a cohort, which is senior citizens. You have said that whoever has got a chronic disease, we want to cater to that segment. So that's very, very specific. You have specified your product as well. I think what you mixed upon is your teleconsultation as well, right? So that's in your mind, you are a business owner, right? But however, your teleconsulting is a completely different proposition, will have a different positioning. Uske liye, do you think that you would want to only do it for a senior citizen cohort, or do you think you want to expand it for a bigger cohort? So all of a sudden, imagine your positioning changing out there.
Yes. So as you rightly mentioned, things may change, but as of now, our laser focus is on the senior citizens to begin with, because they are the one who are having, as I said, chronic healthcare issues. Like if you see senior citizens, most of them have either blood pressure, diabetes, or depression. These are the three category of health issues, and they have a dependency because their children stay either in tier 1 cities or abroad. So somewhere the platform is more robust built up for them, but it can be expanded because there is no borderline that we are drawing that, okay, only senior citizens has to use it. It is open for everyone, like even a lazy patient or a scared patient who doesn't want to visit a clinic, they can avail this. But definitely we cater to them as well. But the focus is currently to, have that to begin with the customer segment of senior citizens.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so depression, how do we address is something that we are working with a psychologist, psychiatrist, where it is a very secretive or privacy policies. So right now we are also building that separate channel and platform. We are not mixing it with the ongoing kind of consultations, because that needs a lot of privacies, and each time when the patient visits, there has to be a track record of what was the counseling or what all things. So right now, one of my team member is working with those set of doctors. We are trying to build that, ecosystem there. Does that answer your question, Vijay? Vijay Gopal?
Absolutely, Sanjeev ji. Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Anyone else wants to take a shot at this?
Yeah, hi Sanjeev, Chetan here from Research Needs.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, hi. My positioning framework is just as scribbled out, like for postgraduate doctors, research, medical schools, research institutes who wants to ease their research process, is a research data management platform that bundles a well-organized data collection process more securely, accurately, and cost-effectively. Unlike other players provide a complex platform with a high cost and hard to deploy with the users. Research Needs provides a simple real-time data collection platform with associated services on advanced statistics and medical writing. Basically, we are trying to develop a platform which can ease the clinical research data collection process as well as with data analytics. Presently, around 99% of the users, they are using a paper-based, that's a conventional method, which is consuming a lot of time, cost in their process. So with this platform, we can bring down nearly half of their time and the cost.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what you understand from here is basically the broad positioning framework, right? Now we'll break it down into smaller themes and how the direction needs to be found from here onwards. Chetan, I like the way you have approached it. I think it's perfect. Even Sanjeev, Vijay, you guys, thank you so much for actually putting down your positioning frameworks. You could use this as something that you can always go back to whenever, the nature of your product is changing, or, when you're going to change your vision. It actually helps you balance and really keeps you at sane to know that mera product yahi karta hai, and it makes sure that you do not derail, you do not get derailed from what your vision actually is. So I'll move on to the next one, right, which is the strategy definition template. From a strategy perspective, this is something that you would have seen, which is very, very common across all the places. Okay, product strategy is all about vision, goals, and initiative. All of you guys know your vision very, very well. You guys know also what goals you want to achieve. The only request I have, and typically sometimes vision gets confused with mission. Vision is supposed to be time boxed. You cannot have a vision which is similar to your mission, that, you know, I want to solve the credit problem in India. That's a mission. But I want to solve a specific credit problem in India in next 1 year. That's a vision. How do you achieve it with a specific goal? You put a numeric goal behind it. So for example, I want to solve a credit problem in India for MSME in the next 1 year. I want to give out credit, or I want to give out loans to 10 million customers in the next 1 year. That's how I would frame it. And then I would have my initiatives around it. Now, how do I reach there? So what are the directions that I need to take? So in our case, we kept it very, very simple. We wanted to be #1 in simplifying credit education in 1 year. And we wanted to be integrated with 30 banks and NBFCs. We wanted to achieve a revenue of 1 crore. And we wanted to reach at least 100,000 customers. So we had these 3 goals in place. And then this is the vision that we had stayed for a year. It's not true that we did not reach there in 1 year. It took us many, many years to reach there. But it was an audacious vision that we had put in place so that we could aggressively put our initiatives behind it. Once we ended up putting our positioning framework and we put up our vision and goals, we started identifying the target group. Okay, abhi ek saal mein, who do I go after to reach that number? So we narrowed down the target group to a specific cohort that we wanted to chase. And we built a general framework around it. We said that, hey, for a specific target group, we'll be running or executing a specific task to increase or decrease an effort, cost, time on themselves, customers, and partners. So we said that we need to know who is it that I'm going to go after in this 1 year. And we came up with this. We said that recently, under 5 years, started banks and NBFCs who will be running their cross-sell business and want to increase their fee income on their currently acquired customers. What this helped us to do, it helped us to remove all the other banks and NBFCs who were operating at large scale and who would have become extremely difficult for us to push our product into them. This also narrowed down the number of customers that we wanted to reach to. So we came up with this 30 banks and NBFCs, which recently started. And we said, hey, you know what? The fundamental challenge with these banks would be that they would not have a strong cross-sell business in place. So we want to go after these guys because they will be the lowest hanging fruit today. They have a recently acquired base. Now they would want to make more money out of them. Let's go out for these guys. Large banks and NBFCs would not have that problem because they have a strong business already built. So we narrowed down our cohort to this using this framework. And we ended up going after the recently formed banks and NBFCs. Now, in your case, I had a look at your ideal customer profile, and I assumed that some of these would be your, even your target group as well. So to start off with some of yours, and sorry, there are no names out here. I'm just going to go through something which seems super generic, which is point number 3, eye hospitals, right? But eye hospitals में क्या? आपका vision अगर 1 साल का है, so what do you do? How do you go about breaking your cohort into smaller cohorts and saying that which eye hospital should I go after first? Then the second thing would be orthodontist who's keen on providing clear aligner services in tier 2 cities and sees a price advantage using digital dentistry. Which orthodontist would this be? Would this be the young, recently graduated orthodontist? Would this be the tech-savvy orthodontist? Kaun hoga ye cohort? You have to be very, very specific on that target group because your sales and your distribution strategy is going to be entirely dependent on it. So be extremely specific on who these personas are going to be like so that you clearly are able to build your product roadmap, your sales roadmap, and your distribution roadmap around it. Sorry, Pratik, you had a question?
Yeah, Pratik, can you comment on the 5th one, please?
On the 5th one? Okay.
Yeah.
The 5th one is yours.
Yeah.
Okay. So ideally, we'll be working with customers who can understand the value of self-care and willing to act on recommendation, tech professionals who are aware about the effect of their lifestyle and occupational stressor on their health, relationship, and life as such. Okay. Your first statement is super generic. Your second statement, tech professionals, you'll have to break it down even further. You could say possibly a younger cohort, a freshly graduated tech or someone who is anywhere between 25 to 35, who are now getting affected because of their stressful life. So now again, I'm going to break it down into who are working like me. मतलब हम chair पे बैठे, आप chair पे बैठे, who have a sedentary lifestyle and have an occupational stress because of this, right? So sedentary lifestyle है तो occupational stress तो होगा ही होगा. 25 to 35 है तो आज के तारीख में that stress level is going to be there because on a sit down kind of environment in a blue collar job, that level of stress creeps in. So narrow down your cohort into that. Get 25 to 35 tech professionals who have a very sedentary lifestyle. So now you're not going to go after वो active लोग के पास आप नहीं जाओगे.
Can you come on?
You will not go after, let's say, an active population, right? So what I mean by active is के जो fit है ये है तो आप उनके पास नहीं जाओगे because they will not be the willful buyers, but the willful buyers will be the one who will, let's say, have a very sedentary lifestyle, who will be, let's say, working non-stop. वो type के population को आप target करोगे.
Just a clarity, right? Clarification. So there are so many different factors in it that even if they are physically fit, does not really mean they have their other factors addressed. We address 7 factors, so there's a possibility they are fit, which covers 1 or 2 factors, but they may not be covering other factors. So not necessary that they are out of it. On the contrary, they are more likely to be the people who are the first suited people for us.
Yeah. So subjective. It's just that I am not very, very clear on your business, right, Vijay? So I'm just trying to give you some general framework or general guidance perspective to it. Okay, I would probably frame it like this. So this way क्या होगा कि my distribution and my sales strategy will be very specific. तो मतलब मेरे को जब इसका positioning करना होगा, when I'll have to go and talk to it about some folks, or let's say when I'm kind of going and building things around it, I know that it's going to be restricted to only this. And then you could always expand it into further segments. Anyone else if
Pratik, Prashant here from Falatex. Can you also throw some light on point number 8?
Point number 8?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. High net worth, 1 second. I'm just trying to see if this. All right. Yeah. High net worth individuals with own house and interested in taste, flavor of vegetables, organic eating, health and fitness. I saw this. I found the statement to be good, but you need to break down high net worth individuals even furthermore. क्योंकि high net worth individuals में भी बहुत सारे cohorts बन जाते हैं. So your cohort. So for example, I would say someone who would. We all fall in that in that category per se, right? But I would not be interested in organic eating, and there would be a very specific cohort which would be interested. So let's say high net worth को further break down करने के बाद, let's say you would say a young population in tier 1 cities having a own house. That's even more granular in nature. So break it down even further. So your target group has to be extremely, extremely narrow today. And I'm talking it more from the perspective because you guys, I'm guessing you are either in a year or 2 years of your business, right? So it kind of helps and builds a very strong focus on where you want to go. Prashant, does that answer your question?
Yes, Pratik, yeah.
So high net worth को और break down कर दो. So let's say someone who is earning anywhere about 40-50 lakh rupees a year, who is anywhere between a certain age range, couple hai, married hai, I don't know, have a family, they have their own house. इतना narrow करो. तो आपका क्या होगा फिर then when you're putting everything behind it, you know then it's this population I want to start with, and then maybe go on to another population. So in our case, हम लोग ने भी ऐसे किया. When we started our lending business, we said that we started off wrong. हम लोग ने बोला we want to give to self-employed. We want to give out loans to self-employed, and we said, hey, that's too wrong. We cannot go so broad today. So we narrowed it down and said, let's bring it down to Kirana stores. And we said, hey, Kirana stores तो बहुत सारे हैं. which Kirana store should we do it to? Today, banks and NBFCs are also doing it. General stores ko kare, Kirana stores ko kisko kare? So we said, no, Kirana stores which are making a revenue less than 50,000 rupees. So like, okay, Kirana stores making less than 50,000 rupees. Now further break it down. And we said that Kirana stores making less than 50,000 rupees do not get cash or credit to purchase inventory from the market. We broke it down even further. We said, okay, now ab kya kare? We said, let's go down even one leg down. And we said, Kirana stores making less than, generating less than 50,000 rupees, do not get cash advance easily, are operating with large stockist or digital stockist. So all this narrowing down, and we said, hey, so now looks like we should go to companies like Jumbotail. Let's go to companies like Jumbotail, and why not build this proposition to them? Hey, you know what? We have built a product where you can give credit to your customers. We will fulfill that credit for you. And I'll tell you this, we ended up finding 30 companies who are in that business. So now we have a strong strategy and strong positioning where we replicate that positioning to everyone. Hey, you know what? You have this customer. And they said, yes, we have this customer. They are purchasing this. They said, yes, they are purchasing this. Why not use my product? You can easily, fulfill their cash demands that they have today. You can increase your AOVs if you have this product in place. And all of a sudden, we are now going to go live with 5 companies because our positioning was very, very similar. And we just replicated that. The idea of positioning is that you should be able to replicate it super fast so that you are able to, at least capture that segment. फिर उसके बाद आप next segment में जाओ ना, पहले एक segment को ढंग से आप close कर दो. Okay, I have managed to capture a market share or a 30-40% market share. I mean, when you're pitching it to the investors, yes, you always want to show a total addressable market. But when you're doing a 1 year, 2 year ka vision, you won't be able to achieve that 100% ka addressable market unless and until you go after a specific segment and you position it for that segment and you build something for that segment. So which is why having a very, very specific target group is important. Does that help? Okay, so I'll move on. Now, once you have a target group in place, you'll have to build a distribution strategy. So when you're building a distribution strategy, you need to know how the existing purchase happens in a TG. And I'll again take some examples, and I could be absolutely wrong, so please correct me if I'm going there. The second point is, do you want to shift the behavior or do you want to continue with the existing behavior? Matlab, if there is a specific way of their purchase pattern, do you want to just sweep in that purchase pattern, or do you want to make a shift in their behavior, which means that's a lot of work that you'll have to do. How do you want to change that behavior? Do you want to deploy fleet on street, or digital marketing, social networking, cold calling, online retail, offline retail, bundling, right? So there are different ways of distributing your product. How would you want to go about selling your product? In our case, what we did is we built a massive sales pipeline. We list down all the banks and NBFCs our founders had contact with and who wanted to run a credit education product. We met all the banks and NBFCs and showed them our MVP with the case study, the successful case study that we had. So ours was very, very traditional in nature. We did a fleet on street. We did not change their purchase behavior. We said your purchase behavior is going to remain the same because we are going to bundle it with one of your partners. So we partnered with another company, which is already helping them in doing the cross-sell. And we said, hey, you know what? This just comes along with it. Ye lo, iske saath hi aa jata hai. So we did not make a shift in the way the purchase was happening. So the procurement team did not find it difficult to take our product because we were bundling inside someone else. So CPP karke ek product hota hai, which is given to the customers for credit card protection plan. So for one of our clients, what we said, hey, you know what? Just bundle it inside CPP. Our product will just fit in there very, very nicely. So he said, okay, okay, I don't have to make any change. Just for a little bit more margin, they ended up purchasing the product. Is this slide making sense to all of you all?
Yeah, Pratik.
Okay. Now, once you have all of these things in place, you need to create an effective value proposition for your customers. I mean, what are your end benefits that the customer would end up getting? The actual benefit that the product brings on the table, whether it increases or decreases anything for them financially, whether it increases or decreases anything for them non-financially. and what are your competitive differentiators. So out here in our case, we said it will increase your fee income for your, it increased fee income for our partners. It increased the brand association for partners' customers, because the white label product which is sold to the customers would feel, hey, you know what, hey, Bajaj mere ko ek credit report de raha hai, which simplifies my credit understanding. That looks brilliant. And it also had an indirect benefit where it reduced losses as when the product was sold. Because a credit educated customer would not end up defaulting, right? The likelihood of that happening was very, very low. And that's what our research studies state. And our competitive differentiators that we put in place was that we incentivized for every sale that was happening. Like I said, product strategy is not about product development, but it's all about everything else that goes around it. So we built sales incentives. We had subscription plans in place. And we also built a tool which helped them white labeled and build drag and drop templates. So we simplified, and that's what made us competitive very, very different, because no other competition was providing any kind of sales incentives. No one had a subscription plan in place, and no one had a white labeling in place. Can you show and explain how you rewrote and represent? Yeah, sure. I'll go back to the previous slide so that. So this is the product that we ended up building. You can always go to Bajaj's website, and you can see this product is also hosted out there, and it's been there on their website for the last 8 years. So the product was very, very simple. It was a credit score. It broke down the credit score into small categories, into easy to understand, easy to interpret categories. And then we further broke it down into, where they stand on each of these grades. And we gave nice recommendations around it. It was a very, very simple product. This product was entirely white labeled, and it could be done by the client themselves. So we gave a tool where they could drag and drop the elements of how they want the report to be structured. And they could also decide whether they want to send an email, whether they want to send SMS to the customer, and they want to host it somewhere. So it was simplified to that level. So this was our 1 year ka vision. 30 banks pahunchne ke liye kya kare? So we had to break it down into product, sales, marketing, sab kuch karna pada tha. Sales ke liye kya kiya? To boost the sales efforts, what we ended up doing is we ended up building an incentive plan. So we said that if you sell 100 reports, we will give you additional incentive to your sales partners, so that they are incentivized to sell more. And the third strategy we had was the pricing strategy, where we said that we will reduce the price if you sell more. So we decreased our margins so that they are able to sell more and they're incentivized to sell more. Vijay, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, I'm presently having a dilemma or a challenge around exactly a reporting format.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm addressing exactly the same structure. Okay. I mean, and kind of the visualization and how do I put it? More than visualization, I say the people who are good at communicating this message, I'm finding it very difficult to get people. I've struggled in this for more than 4 weeks. I've not got it right. I've already got into the market and doing screening, and my report has not come out right. Any solution? I know this has got nothing to do with the program. I'm just wondering if there is a perspective that you can share. See, what my screening program does is very simple. I have 40 questions, which takes approximately 20 minutes for each of the couple, or only one might take the report. We take another hour to actually go through it. We have a scoring mechanism and finalize the report, which is going to be 7-8 pages. Okay. The problem is most diagnostic reports, when you look at a diagnostic report or a screening report, right? Nobody understands. They always reach out to somebody in their circle, say, hey, I think you know something about medicine, right? Why don't you explain what is written in it? It's not self-explanatory. And my entire goal has been to change it to self-explanatory state. That was my goal, and I'm still struggling with it. Okay. Honestly speaking, my satisfaction level of what I have today is less than 50%. Is that a perspective that you can give, which will me kind of break through and I can solve this problem? I know it's got nothing to do with the program itself. I understand. Yeah. This is a very operational issue I'm facing.
Yeah. I can try. I can give you from the experience that we have had. Maybe it could not be right for you, but I'll try my best. Or maybe what we could do is we could probably have a separate session, and then we can kind of do a brainstorming on that.
Oh, that will be amazing, Pratik.
Yeah,
I don't want to
I'm happy
eat
to do
into
it.
everyone's time space. I'll seek a 30-minute session with you if that's possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Anytime.
because we are actually going live full blown for 1st of Jan, and I really want to get this important thing right.
Yeah, done. We'll have a separate session on this. But
thank you,
I can just give you a brief thing. We spend around 2.5 months just speaking to customers and trying to gauge what they want. Not just our banking partners, but also the end customers as well. So we spend a lot of time doing that. That insane amount of time that we spent actually helped us build our entire roadmap around it. We never launched the product in the beginning. When we started off, the product was actually made on PPT. And we were circulating the product on PPT to the customers. So we had this template and we were circulating. And then we would ask feedback. We would call every customer and say, "Aapko kaisa laga ye?" And then they would say, "Arey yaar, ye part nahi samajh mein aa raha hai. This way, ye kya hai ye variable? Kuch bhi likhte ho aap." So we said, "Acha, theek hai, what is it your expectation?" And then we would resend another copy to them. Because for us, the marginal cost of the additional development that we had to do on the product was zero. Because it was being done on PPT. So we, for the first few months, we did not use technology at all. मैंने एक macro लिखा हुआ था. That macro is to convert it into an Excel sheet. That Excel sheet से हम लोग variables उठा के एक PPT में ऐसे paste करके customers को भेजते थे. That's how we started off. And that we call it as an MVP, right? So during the course of doing MVP, all of this research came in place. And Bajaj was kind enough to be so patient and say, "Okay, it's okay if you delay by 15 days. It's okay if you don't deliver right now, but make sure when you are ready with the product, you actually build a really, really good product that customers enjoy purchasing." So that 2.5 months that we spent really helped us to nail the product constituents. So my only one-liner suggestion is speak to your customers as much as you can. In the end, I know people always say, right, customers don't know what they want, but it's wrong. Actually, customers don't know what they want, but they know what problem they have. So it'll be important. It's very, very important to know what problem they have. They may not be able to articulate in the right way, but when you start looking in between the lines and when you group it, you will see that there is some similarity that is forming right now. But let's do a 30-minute session. I'm happy to kind of speak to you about it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So once you have all of these 5 steps in place, you have kind of noted down all of these things. You ended up using the research, analyze, and market framework. You noted down the positioning framework that you want. You identify the target group that you want to go once you have your vision set for a specific time box period. You identified what should be your distribution strategy that you want to have in place, and what is the effective value proposition that you want to build for your customers. You now need to list down your product initiatives, which everyone calls as the product roadmap. The reason why I call it as a product initiative, because today, product roadmap is synonymously used with technology roadmap, which is not true. A product roadmap is everything that goes along with it. That is not only just the product development, but also your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, your business strategy, everything, and your pricing strategy. All 4 fit inside your product initiatives. So when we noted down, we said, what are the features that I would require to get live with my numeric goal? How would I prioritize these initiatives? What are the technical challenges and the constraints that I'll have? And what do I do to tackle them? And what features or initiatives do I have to build to have a unique mode? So before we get into the example, the Credit Vidya thing that we ended up doing, I just want to kind of give you a small brief of the type of modes that could exist. One is economies of scale. In some of your case, you would end up taking smaller margins for a large volume of business that you're doing. A network effect. So as and when your product gets adopted even more, you would improvise the product so that you are able to satisfy a new cohort. You have some patent secrets, which means that you would make it illegal for someone else to work. You have a high switching cost. It's just that the product is so deep ingrained into the system that they don't want to leave you anymore. And you have a great customer loyalty, so that you have a great support service, you have a great product constituent, so that no one wants to leave you. Now, it is not true that you need to have just one mode, right? So your mode should exist across, either it should be one or more, or it could be all 5 as well, depending on how you'd want to give, how would you want to build your product. In our case, we had 3 modes. We ended up having, so to give you an example, in our case, the challenge was very, very simple. And I'll explain the modes as well. Banks took a lot of time to integrate, which increased our sales cycle. We realized that banks are highly regulated and will not allow the PI information to go out of the premise. The bank sales team were not incentivized to increase bank's fee income. And competition also provided subscription as a service. So what we ended up doing is that we deployed the system in their premise. So the first mode that we ended up getting, which no competitor did, by the way, is having a high switching cost. Now, there was no incentive for a bank to say, "Arey, credit Vidya ke products ab kidhar aur jate hain," because they already spent so much amount of time along with us to deploy the product for them. The second thing is we ended up giving them a dashboard with all the necessary features that the competitors were providing and even more. So a bit of must-haves that competitors were giving and delightful features which no one else was giving. So all of a sudden, we ended up having a customer loyalty kind of system where they would love using it because all of these features help them customize the way they would want to sell to their customers. Then we had our slab-based pricing, which meant that as your sales increase, we would decrease our pricing, and that motivated them to sell even more. Because for them, the affected margin that they were losing was not a lot. And for us, our revenues were increasing as and when the sales were increasing. And we also designed incentive programs as well for partner sales. So we had campaigns that would boost sales every month. So we would say, hey, if you do 50% of your loan disbursed sales, we would incentivize you guys with, let's say, 10% of whatever fee Credit Vidya earns. And then they were incentivized to sell even more. And sometimes you would see that numbers would go even around 19 or 95%. So we ended up building multiple modes out here. One is economies of scale was one of the biggest mode. The second one was high switching costs. And the third one was customer loyalty. Over a period of time, over the years, we also had network effects. So we ensured that the product improved as and when it got even more adopted with some more features. So what I'm talking about right now is just for the first 2 years. Obviously IP patent trade secret was not there because our product did not have any kind of IP inside it, but the product was just demonstrating financial literacy in a much more simplified manner. And that's where we ended up having 4 modes today. Very difficult for NBFC or a bank to switch to anyone else's product just because we were beating them on everything. And it's important that when you are going to have your initiatives, you have your initiatives build around these for your vision that you're going to build. So any questions? And that's basically the end of the session. I'm open to questions if you guys have any. So if you want, I can just quickly summarize. These are the 6 things you need to research, analyze, market, write your positioning framework, identify the target group, build a distribution strategy, create an effective value proposition, and list down all the product initiatives. I'll kid you not, it looks like it's very, very simple, but it's not. For every time we want to launch our product, it takes us around a month and a half, 2 months to really, really nail it down before we launch a product into the market. And that's after MVP. Even after a lending business, which we started back in October, after 5 months of doing MVP and distributing our loans to 2,000 customers, we sat down and we did this exercise for 3 months to really, really know who the customers are and what our target, what our positioning should be, and how would we go about building a strategy. Tomorrow is when we are going to launch the product officially into the market. So I can tell you it's been like a 6 months hard work for us to actually build a product strategy and to come to this stage. Happy to take any questions you guys have.
Pratik, Sonder here. I have one doubt.
Yeah.
I would like to know what comes under the product initiatives. You mentioned 4 steps, right?
Yeah.
Just can you please take me through that like once?
Yeah. So one is what features would I require to build to reach my numeric goal? How would I prioritize these initiatives? And there is another session where the prioritization is going to be spoken about. I have not picked up prioritization out here because this is just a strategy document.
Okay.
The third is, what are the technical challenges and constraints that I'll have and how will I tackle them? And what are the feature initiatives that I have to build to have a unique mode? The initiatives are not just limited to the product development, which is the technology, using technology to develop the product. The initiatives are also your sales, your marketing, your pricing. All of those are your initiatives.
Okay. Thank you.
I have not used any frameworks out here. That was very, very intentional because frameworks have a very high learning curve. What I've done is I've gone through some of the frameworks and I've simplified into simple questions so that we can keep asking them to ourselves. The frameworks typically end up getting discarded. I have a framework which I can circulate to you guys, which I launched 6 months ago, which is a launch strategy document. I will circulate this after this meeting. I'll make sure that you guys have access to it. You also have access to the video where I kind of spoke about what the framework is. I've just kind of made it very, very specific to a startup. It's not a very generic thing. The reason being that I could relate to where you guys are and the challenges that you would face. And I've just simplified into very, very simple questions. I'm happy to take questions.
Pratik, Prashant here again.
Yeah, Prashant.
One question we had is, how do we know or how do we transition from our MVP phase to a full-blown product development? Like typically, what is the point when we say, okay, now my MVP is validated, and I mean, how many samples? Kind of, yeah.
So I would say that this would vary from business to business. What you would see is that at a certain stage, you would see that you would start seeing customers requesting more things from you. Okay, meko ye chahiye, you know, why don't you kind of add this? Why don't you kind of add that? That's a good indicator for you to say, hey, you know what, MVP looks good because now people are satisfied with the product. It looks validated. And now I'm seeing new requests coming in. That's when you say that, hey, you know what, looks like the MVP is doing fine. Now let me now think about what my next step should be. How can I kind of make it into a full-blown stage? And that's where you end up doing this part, which is your building your strategy document. You kind of start doing your research. You speak to all of the customers who have purchased or not purchased your product. You talk about the frequent pain points that they have when they're purchasing it. What are the different needs that they have? Because unless and until you don't do this, you would end up derailing your next product development or product iterations that you would end up doing. So wait for those requests coming in for those new things that people want. Let it reach a certain stage where you feel confident about the fact that, hey, it looks like now is a good time for me to really think about strategy. Till that time, the MVP is still not validated.
Wonderful.
You want people to come and keep requesting it. So in our case, it was Bajaj started asking for new things. Are new to credit customer ke liye kuch bana do. Are ek kaam karo na, just add a few more things inside the system. Take these news data set. Why don't you include it out here? And that's when we thought, MVP to khatam ho gaya. Looks like the pilot went success. The clients are asking for new things. What do we do now? Now, in case of our lending business, I'll tell you how it happened. In our lending business, the loans got completed and customers saying, give me new loan. And we're like, hey, 1 second. Before we even start our new loan business or cross-selling business, let's first understand what our strategy is. So we took a pause there. We took a 3-4 months break. And we said, let's first strategize what we want to do. Because if we end up giving loans to everyone, then our focus will be, we will completely derail what our strategy is or our vision is. So we narrowed it down further. And we said that, hey, you know what, we only want to do it to this customer today because this customer looks more promising to us. And it is a growing base as well, right? So the market kept growing. In your case, Prashant, the HNI segment is going to keep growing.
Yeah.
People are going to get richer. And the needs are also going to shift. There is a lot of education that is happening with respect to organic eatery. So the only thing that you need to do is you need to wait and you need to start speaking to customers more often and understand from them, okay, boss, why is it that you buy and why is it you don't buy? So let's say, for example, I would be one of your customers and say, okay, why are you not purchasing organic food? So I would say, अरे बाजू में किधर मिलता ही नहीं है. Hey, it's too expensive right now. One of the things, right? I go to Heiko today, close by, which is a supermarket which gives organic food. And if I place organic to a normal eatery, I would see that the price is way too high. So I would say, still not there yet. But an HNI would say, I really don't care. It's still organic and I would want to purchase that.
Mm.
So you need to speak to your customers more now. It's a very, very good time to start talking to them if you have started getting new requests.
Understood. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question?
So I have a question, Pratik.
Yeah. Hi,
so
Krishna.
basically,
No.
yeah, hi. So basically, we deal with two segment of customers, right? Because if you see in the telemedicine, we first have to focus on onboarding the backend part where we need healthcare service providers like doctors and lab diagnostics, right? So first is that part, and the second is once they are loaded, then we need the patients, the needy users who would look for to use it. Now, how that go? Do you think that should go in hand, or do you think first we should go and load with the service providers where the patients will look for? So, what is kind of the thing that you feel might help us, to build a better strategy here?
Okay, so yours is a marketplace, if I understand. It's a B2B2C marketplace, right? So you have your sellers on one side, and then you have buyers on one side, and you have built a platform right at the center.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll just ask some questions before I jump into trying to answer your question right now. Have you already started business, and do you already have a customer base and the medicine providers on your platform?
Yes, we do. We have launched as a kind of in the city called Belgaum. We have launched, and one particular area we are operating to validate our product and see that how the user reacts and what are the other strategies that we bring in. It's a kind of a area where we are still validating and looking for so that we can improve on our strategy.
So it's currently in the MVP stage, right?
Yeah, you can say solution validation stage. Yes.
Okay. I'll try to pitch in. Maybe it could be completely different than what you're thinking. But how would I go about it is I would, let's say, open up for another area, for example, and I would see if there is a similar demand that's coming in place out there. If it does, then I know the next thing that I have to do is I have to find the service providers who will be able to provide that service out there. That's one way of going about it, trying to find that demand on the platform, similar demand on the platform, and then expanding out there. Or the other thing is you find those customers who are, that's a much more expensive way of approaching it. But the other thing is you kind of move on to another area and then expand out there. With respect to your, and I'm just going to go back, take a step back on this. You're talking specifically about growth, right? You're not talking about any new features that you want to add on the platform, because I'm guessing you're content with the features that you have.
No, the content and the features that whatever we had, we have now, matured more on that. What we look forward is if it's like a chicken and egg, right? So if we look forward for the needy users, patients, they will look that, okay, there is a unavailability of the doctors in their area or in their city. While if we look for the service providers, they look that, oh, there is no leads that I'm getting, right?
Correct.
So the doctors or the lab diagnostics should start getting the leads in the preferred time frame. While at the same time, if you go with the needy users, they may see that, oh, okay, I'm using this platform, but there are no doctors in my locality or in my area.
Correct.
So how we can bring that is what we are right now, validating that part and trying to build a proper.
Okay. So do you have the data of customers coming onto your system and saying, hey, from where they are coming in, from where they are getting onboarded? And do you have that specific data available with you, which states that this group or this cohort has got or this area has got a lot of customers coming in?
Yes, we do. We are right now, promoting branding or kind of bringing that awareness to the people in the city called Belgaum. So, and also reaching out to the social media. Yeah. So definitely there is a traction, and we are going hand in hand for both, whether it's healthcare professionals, we are talking to them, onboarding, while at the same time on the social media platform reaching out to the users who should use this platform. So yes, to answer your question, we have.
You have, and when I'm talking about your onboarding new users, I'm actually from the perspective I'm asking where you don't have serviceability available. Do you have that kind of customer base as well?
Yes, we do. We have people getting from different cities as well. So, and that has led us to some changes in our product because we want to cater them. If you see video consultancy, right? The earlier version of our product was catering only to the city-wise people, but we saw even people from Jamshedpur to Delhi also joining to, word of mouth or other way of and video consultancy is cross pan India. It can be so something that we are building, maturing more on that platform, because if people search for required doctors, even if it can reach out, a Delhi guy can reach out to Belgaum doctors or vice versa, right? So again,
so it's a very, very flywheel kind of problem which marketplaces typically have, where you would want more users would come on board, and then you would have to get more merchants on board, and then that would lead to more users coming on board, and then that would lead to more merchants coming on board. So I understand even in our business, we have the chicken and egg problem at times, because customers would come on board, we would not have sufficient funds to give them. We don't have sufficient funds to give them. Customers would not come on board. How we went about doing it is one way of doing it is, and I'll tell you, Sanjeev, and I think you also know this very well, that's a relationship-based business, right? On one side, the merchants that you're going to have or you're going to onboard, you'll have to build a very strong relationship with them. And these are very, very subjective from my experience. What we ended up doing is we built a relationship with a very strong, we built very strong relationship with few of the merchants, and gave them higher incentives to stay on the platform, even if the leads are not getting generated for some time. And then went and started procuring customers from the other side. To give you an example, from a lending perspective, we said that, hey, I will offer you 16% on every loan that gets disbursed in the market. The market is going to give you 13% today, but I'll give you 3% more. Just stick with me for some time. I'm going to get the demand right now. And that's when I started looking out for demand from the market. That's one way of approaching the problem. The second way of approaching the problem is to generate fake demand. Wherein you would have demand coming in, and you would see that there is a specific pool of customers that is coming into the platform, and then you would go and search for a service provider. But that typically takes a lot of time. The best approach is always to find the service provider, because in the end, your entire business is about them making money. On the other side, it's all about convenience for the customers. So or most of the businesses that I know, for example, Swiggy or Zomato or DoorDash, all of these guys have gone after the merchants first. They've got merchants to come onto the platform from the generated demand that they get. Got marquee merchants to sit on the platform, incentivize them more than the rest of the population, and then address that demand out there, and then started growing into smaller ones, or someone or similar ones. So I'll just try to give some analogy to this. I've started my, let's say, delivery business in Mumbai. I would partner with Apollo hospitals first by or Apollo, or let's say, let's say Apollo Hospitals first, I would incentivize them the highest and say, I'm willing to give you, or I'm willing to take very less margin from you. Just partner with me right now. Generate the demand out there. Once the demand starts coming onto your platform, then you get different partners onto your platform as well, and take higher cuts from them, and have a marquee guy sitting out there on your platform. Because at times what happens, that marquee guy is also going to automatically generate demand onto your platform, because your strategy is going to be, hey, you're on my platform, why don't you also talk about my platform as well? Does that answer your question a little bit or no?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is where we are also heading, where a chain of pharmacies or a chain of lab diagnostics and a kind of reputed doctors, where we are educating them that stay for some time, and while we do some investments in these areas, we will start getting the leads. Meanwhile, you are all, we are not going to charge you for any commissions there. So I think those are the things which we wanted.
It's just that it's a long sales cycle, Sanjeev. I'm guessing you must be facing a lot of hurdles with respect to the sales cycle, where these guys would really be very resistant to come onto your platform. They'll be like, I'm too big. I can generate my own demand. Why should I be on your platform? What is it that you're giving me any better than what others are going to give? And I'm guessing that's the hurdle that you must be facing, which must be making you think, should I just go to the smaller ones? Is that understand?
Exactly. One of the biggest hurdle is they expect second day the leads should start, right? They don't understand the pain or the challenges of the business tactics that we undergo. They say that, okay, I am on your platform for a week and I haven't got any leads.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think higher incentives to them would make them stick to your platform. That's the only way. Till the time you are able to generate that demand.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi, this is Krishna. Thanks, Pratik, for the crisp and simple presentation. Like you said, avoiding the frameworks, etc. So, and it's good to hear from somebody who has, in the last 6-8 years, they have, kind of built up on it. So the practical insights are really helpful. The answer that you were giving in the previous to the question, right, on how when features start coming in from your new customers from the MVP or early whatever you want to call. So how do you guys, because see, people will start asking for something which may be very specific to them. So that's one of the, kind of dilemmas that we kind of want to keep. So at a macro level, we should still have that product vision and, where the product should lead to, because the moment we start building features, we have to really take that call that, oh, is this feature going to be common denominator for most of my other prospects? So how do you guys go about it's like through brainstorming, talking to more of your fields force, and then everybody agrees that yes, this may be something. Is that how it works? Just wanted to understand how you guys go about that.
So traditionally, I'll talk about both the sides of the business on how we went about doing it. In the B2B business, what we did is once this feature started creeping in, once the request started creeping in, we went about asking if people had the same problem. We did not explain them the feature. We went about just telling them whether they had the same problem or not. Once we found that there was a common denominator with respect to the problems, that's when we ended up kind of prioritizing the features that they asked for. And obviously the key part is whether it fit my vision or not. I mean, I'll tell you one big mistake we did, and that business failed horribly for us, was one of the features that customers started asking us, why don't you build a report for the SMEs? So the report that you're seeing out here is for the consumers. Okay. This report. Bajaj, and that was a mistake we made. They said, hey, build a report for SMEs. We did not go and speak to anyone else. Okay. And we spent immense amount of resources trying to build that report. The business shut down in a year. That's when we realized that, at times when you're really hungry for revenue, you would end up making those mistakes. That's what we chased. We did not take a step back and said that, hey, why not just first think about it if there are other people who want it? And if they do want it, what should be our strategy around it? How do we go about distributing that? And that's where we realized that speak to your customers and try to understand more from them rather than, just going about building whatever they ask for. So it's okay if customers get pissed off about the fact that, hey, why are you not building what I want? And our customers have been pissed about it a lot. And banks and NBFCs, I don't know if anyone of you have worked along with them. They're probably the harshest people that you will get to meet. Because they're too big and we're too small. So they will have no respect for you. So we have had those level of customers where they said that, I've been asking for this for 2 months. What are you doing about it? And we had to kindly explain them, hey, we are talking to other guys. We want to see if there's a common denominator that we are finding it. If we do, then we'll definitely make it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for me to spend resources around you. In Credit Vidya's history, we have had 11 products, out of which we had 3 failed products. All because we wanted to build something for one person, and that led to us completely dissolving the product in the next year itself.
Okay, thank you. And an extension, do you also have, like for example, in the future, I don't know if you're already doing it, if there's a large customer who may want to use your base framework and base product and then add extensions like customization. So if you, let's say, encounter a HDFC Bank or someone, right? So are you guys, is that going to be one separate vertical? Is that a thought process that is going on? I hope my question is clear, because see, now it's a product. I'm assuming it's a standard product. But let's say you encounter a very large customer and they like your product. They say, okay, 50% things are there now, but we want to, because they're really big, they want to, it's like customization, and then they want to use this.
Yes.
So is that something which you guys are open to, or you want to keep it just as a product as of now?
So I can give you an example of ICICI Bank being one of our customers for one of a very different product of ours.
Okay.
We have a product called as work verification product. So the theme of the product is that just via an email, I'll be able to verify whether you work there or not. The product was very standard and crisp in nature. You give me an email address, I would fire an email, I would do some checks in the background, and then I'll figure out whether you work there or not. ICICI had a very specific customization request. They said, hey, you know what? When a customer gets an email, he should be able to enter all the details of his loan application. And, once he submits those details, it should come to my system, it should come to your system. And then there are a couple of other things there as well. At times when the customer is too big, it becomes very difficult for us to say no. Because the kind of volume that they would give to us would probably eat up the rest of the revenue that we are generating. So what we ended up doing, we ended up branching out the product into another product for them. And I'll tell you this, Krishna, we replicated the product across all the banks because everyone wanted the same thing. So we identified the target group. So this is where the target group comes in place. So what we did is we took a step back and we said, "Arey, ye target group ko to yehi product chahiye." Looks like all of these guys they are very, very traditional in nature. They are very, very old. The guys out there think only in this manner. So they want a product which is as simple as this. Can we kind of just replicate this across everyone? So all of a sudden, now we have a product called as, the product is called as Eve. It's called Eve Lite and Eve Pro. So Eve Pro is now given to the banks, and Eve Lite is now given to all the smaller guys who want a quick verification product.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Looks there are no questions, Pratik.
Dr. Chetan, do you want to reflect our journey and get some insights?
Yeah, sure. Pratik, as I mentioned earlier, we are into a development of a platform which can ease the research process. So our target segment is medical schools, research institutes, contract research organizations. So as a first market segment, we are trying to get the B2B customers as well as B2C customers. Here the B2B is the medical schools and the B2C is individual doctors who are doing a clinical research work, especially in the academic area. So we are in the stage of an MVP. We want to validate it, right? And like, what are your inputs on like how best we can, move forward to launch a product in a full scale?
So your MVP is currently undergoing. Is that understanding correct?
Yes, yes. We are validating it now.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just try to articulate what you just told me. It's a platform which does it discover research articles, or it's simplifying it?
Like if you are a doctor, you are working on some area like gynecology, you are doing some academic research, you are just evaluating two molecules, two drugs. And the present approach is a conventional method where if you are enrolling 1,000 patients and you are going to collect the data in a pro forma, they will call it as a data collection form. They will collect in their findings in that question paper-based method. And what we identified is, including my research, it is taking a lot of time in digitalizing it because what digitalizing the findings of the research, then it will be analyzed, and later we'll come to know what is the outcome, how the drug is performing or how the drug B is performing. So it will stretch to nearly 1 to 1.5 years. So what we thought was, when we talk with our users, they mentioned, they are not more concerned about the cost part, but they are concerned about the burden or the stress they are having while converting the data into digitalization. Presently they're entering it manually in the Excel, and a statistician will do the analysis, and later they will come to know what their research is telling about those two drugs. So what we are trying here is, we are creating a platform so that they can create their findings right next to the patient in their own mobile. Initially, we plan to provide a device where they can capture the data. But when we having discussion with the many users, the doctors, they understood like we don't want to carry one more device along with us, because we'll be roaming around the facility and we'll be in the ICU. All the time we're carrying our own mobile. So if it is provided in our own mobile, then it will be more helpful. So with that, we are trying to develop that platform so that they can create the required, the questionnaire or the findings and the framework where they can capture their data. It may be the clinical images, or maybe the demographic details, or the vitals, many things. So that should happen real time at the source, and they need to get the analytics out of it. Like earlier, what was happening was, after completing their sample size, like as I mentioned, if they are trying to doing research on 1,000 patients, after analyzing the, collecting data, and after analyzing 1,000, then only they will come to know. Now, if they enter 2 patients' data also, like they can come to know what's the insights on their research. Whether they can decide also whether if it is causing it too much of adverse reaction, they can terminate the study there itself. Earlier, they used to just document, and later they used to, come to know what is going on. So this is the area which we are working. Like, is there any like inputs or suggestions how best we can, validate our product at the earliest? Because we are from a research background, we are lagging, expertise in tech part. Just we are trying to figure out to validate as early as possible.
Okay, understood. So it's a real-time research, let's say, I would say medical research outcome provider, right? So if I were to just summarize it in a very, very crude manner, a doctor would want to research on something, and in earlier days, you kind of take the inputs from your users, digitize it, and then you would come up with some outcome, and you would know. Now, what you're doing, you're making real time, because the inputs are being taken from the user right there and there.
Correct.
Okay. So just one follow-up question on that. So when you're doing your MVP today, what is the kind of feedback you're getting from your doctors? or the staff who's using it, or the medical researchers that you're getting today?
As of now, I mean, last week only we developed that MVP product, and we are yet to start with the validating process. I mean, in-house we I mean tested with different users and all. But so far, I mean, we are yet to onboard few paid, the doctors who can validate our product.
Okay. So I won't be able to comment on how you could expedite your validation process, because I guess it varies from field to field. It varies from industry to industry. What I would say is that you would have to expand your MVP criteria. So what I mean by that is probably you'll have to reach to more doctors to really expedite your MVP. So for example, today you only have you'll have one doctor who would probably be doing research on specific number of patients. You would probably need 100 to 200 doctors who could be using your platform today. And you could possibly have all of these doctors to use your platform. And if the other thing that you could possibly do is that once these doctors are using a platform, you incentivize them with something, which would, give them some end benefit. And when I talk about incentivize, I'm not talking about monetary incentivization, because they are very highly paid anyway. Some incentivization which would make them continuously use your platform. So because it's digital, I'm guessing the doctor is not going to make those inputs. He will have those medical researchers, or he will have those interns who will end up using the platform, right?
Yeah, because usually in few researchers, there will be a team of 2 to 3 members where a senior doctor will lead the study. And in majority of the cases, doctor, he or her himself will input the data.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw some thoughts out here. It could be completely wrong as well, Chetan, but with my limited understanding, I'll just try to gauge how it can possibly be, how a doctor can be incentivized. Once a research has been done, on let's say a successful research has been done, what are the steps that a doctor has to take to publish or do the publication of the report? Maybe you can incentivize the doctor out there saying that, I will help you out taking up some activity once you complete this. That could be a great way to get your MVP out in the market. At least let people know that there's another way of now doing your research. You no longer have to use paper-based doing paper-based research inputs. You could now possibly use technology to solve that problem. And at the same time, you are incentivizing the doctor to say that, listen, I'll help you out to expedite your research out here. So rather than you waiting for a year, I will actually find you patients everywhere else. So that one way is that I'll find you patients everywhere. So if there is a certain molecule that he's looking for, I'm sure that the number of patients that he will have access to is going to be very limited. So can Chetan help him find those patients for him so that he can expedite his research?
Okay.
That's one way of helping, because that's a good incentive for a doctor, right? Because for him, the faster he's able to get his research out, the faster his name gets recognized, and the faster he is going to become a better doctor, or let's say a much more glorified doctor. So that's a great incentive for him. So not everything boils down to technology. I think a lot of this is going to be a lot of relationship-based business that you'll have to build with him. Okay. So that's one way of incentivizing. The other is outcome-based incentive could be, I will expedite your publication. And I'll help you out, getting a name out in the market. And that's when you also put your name out that, we were the ones who actually helped him out. That could be one of your case studies. And during the course of your MVP, once you have, let's say, a couple of specialists who are using a platform, you'll start getting feedback on the things that they would want. When it reaches a certain stage where you can no longer handle, when you have seen one successful outcome, and when you can no longer handle the new feature request that you're getting in, that's when you know that your MVP is now reached a certain stage. And you can now move about thinking about what your product strategy should look like.
Okay.
Did I kind of answer your question?
Yes. And is there any specific number, like, so that we can understand our MVPs got validated? Like, is there any particular size of numbers?
So, I mean, typically people say 100 and thousands are the numbers that we're looking at, but like I said, varies from industry to industry. Like in our case, our total addressable market itself was not 1,000. So, मतलब हम लोग के लिए तो सिर्फ 10 बैंक था to really validate our MVP. In your case, it would, let's say, for example, be 10 completed researchers that could possibly be your MVP, and the MVP can be completely set by you. But it has to be an MVP where by intuition you feel satisfied about the fact that this is where I would want to say that the MVP is completed, and now I could now think about building a product strategy. Because like I said, unless and until you don't get sufficient feedback, unless and until you don't get sufficient feedback and you feel now uncomfortable with the fact that hey, now I can no longer take this new inputs that are coming in. That's when you need to take a step back and say, okay, now I'm going to shut my MVP and I'm really going to think about how I want to take this product forward.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chetan. Bharat, do you have any doubts? Just want to get clarified with any of your activities?
I don't think Bharat is here.
Yeah, actually, I think he might be dropped sometime back.
Yeah.
So Pratik, we have almost 2 more Nidhi Prayas winners as well, who are in a very early stage of their product development. Praveen Hegde, if you just want to share your product and if you want to get clarified any of your thoughts, please most welcome.
Sundar, Praveen is part of our team. He will be joining the 30-minute session with, when I'm getting to the session with Pratik. So we'll take that there.
Right then. Yeah. So any other Nidhi Prayas winners we would like to get just clarified? Okay. Yeah, I think Pratik, there is no queries from our participants, it seems.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I would like to thank every one of you. This is the first time I'm actually doing a webinar to founders. I'm typically doing webinars to product managers. So thank you so much for taking your time to hear me out. There is so much more that I can learn from you based on your experiences. And I'm sure, I've been through that stage. I was telling Sounder earlier that I'm also an investor in on the company that I'm working in right now. So I have a lot of skin in the game today. So I can really feel what you guys are going through on a day-to-day basis, right? Because that's the same feeling that we had in the first couple of years when we started off our venture. And when we started off, we did not have that much clarity. The reason being that the access to information was not there. So we were always dabbling around here and there. So yeah, I would like to thank you all again. Thank you so much for hearing me out. You can reach out to me. I'm going to put down my, 1 second. Should I put down my phone number here, Sounder?
Yeah, sure, Pratik. That would be great.
Yeah. You can reach out to me on my phone number. So I put my phone number in the chat. Please reach out to me anytime. I'm open for conversations. Anytime. We can schedule a time together and then we can kind of have a session on any topic that you want to have.
Yeah, that would be great, Pratik. I would just, thank you for, participating, and sharing your, precious time with us. And, I hope our founders may be most benefited today. If we want to summarize this session, it was really great. The topics which we have break down into. The one most thing which I like very much is since we have gone through multiple topics, you gave comparison, like with each and every topics which you relate with. Yeah. So that comparison which, helped us and our founders to, just so that we also could able to relate with our startup, which gave us some time, some knowledges, how it can able to done much better. That was really great. And, narrowing down the ICP as well. That also worked much better.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sonder.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Pratik. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.